Rodgers has come to court seeking reimbursement for the vacation rental fees he paid Hull, alleging that the property did not meet his expectations or match its advertised quality. Judge Judy quickly takes control of the proceedings, calmly asking Rodgers to confirm essential details about the rental. She asks where exactly the rental condo was located, to which Rodgers promptly replies, Dana Point. Judge Judy continues to methodically build the case background, requesting that Rodgers provide her with the original advertisement or listing that initially drew him and his wife to the property. Rodgers hesitates momentarily, indicating some confusion about the specific paperwork, but soon hands over some photos. Judge Judy, determined to stay focused, instructs the bailiff, Byrd, to confirm directly with Rodgers if these photos indeed match the advertisement he originally saw and responded to. Rodgers confirms that the photos presented by Byrd are indeed the exact images from the ad he used to select the vacation condo. Judge Judy carefully observes his response, establishing clarity about the foundational aspects of the dispute, ensuring the courtroom clearly understands the specifics of Rodgers' initial attraction to the rental property. After establishing the preliminary facts, Judge Judy transitions methodically into the financial specifics of the rental arrangement. She asks Rodgers directly if he paid the entire rental fee up front for what was supposed to be a 4-week vacation period. Rodgers confirms he initially had planned a shorter vacation but later decided to extend his stay, ultimately agreeing to pay for a full 4 weeks. Judge Judy carefully repeats these details, ensuring that both she and the audience understand clearly. Rodgers paid a total of $5,276 for a 4-week stay, covering from September 9th through October 6th. She notes specifically that Rodgers arrived as scheduled on September 9th, but then highlights that he chose to leave early, departing on September 28th, about 8 days before the agreed-upon checkout date. Rodgers acknowledges this, though Judge Judy simplifies this detail by referring to it simply as 1 week, streamlining the conversation. Throughout this exchange, Judge Judy maintains her calm yet authoritative demeanor, reinforcing key facts. To ensure clarity, she emphasizes the importance of this timeline to the broader dispute, firmly establishing the scenario that Rodgers rented the condo, committed financially to the entire period, but chose voluntarily to leave significantly ahead of schedule. Rodgers, in response, agrees with each point Judge Judy makes, seemingly unaware that by doing so, he might be setting the stage for questions about the legitimacy of his demand for a refund. As the hearing progresses, Judge Judy shifts her attention directly to Rodgers' specific grievances regarding the condition and quality of the rental. She carefully reviews the written complaint Rodgers previously submitted, summarizing it aloud to ensure both the plaintiff and audience clearly understand the accusations he is making. Rodgers asserts in his complaint that the vacation rental suffered from several issues, including the presence of ants throughout the bedroom and kitchen, as well as notably in the freezer, where he dramatically describes encountering thousands of dead ants. Additionally, he mentions dissatisfaction regarding the absence of what he considers basic kitchen amenities, notably referencing a blender as an example. Judge Judy, known for her demand for tangible evidence, immediately zeroes in on these claims. In her characteristic firm and precise manner, she challenges Rodgers to substantiate his allegations by asking him to produce photographic evidence of the ants, particularly emphasizing the significant claim of thousands of ants in the freezer. A scenario easily documentable. Rodgers, visibly unprepared for the judge's direct line of questioning, admits that he possesses no photographs at all to back up these allegations. The judge's demeanor shifts slightly to skepticism upon hearing this admission, subtly indicating through her expression and tone that she finds Rodgers' lack of evidence particularly questionable. Rodgers' credibility begins to visibly weaken. At this moment, especially given the intensity of his accusations without any concrete proof. Judge Judy's pointed inquiries serve to underscore an important aspect of legal proceedings. Claims require evidence, and Rodgers' failure to meet This expectation clearly impacts the direction and potential outcome of the case. After addressing Rodgers' initial complaints about cleanliness and missing amenities, Judge Judy patiently listens as Rodgers shifts the focus of his grievances to a different issue: ongoing exterior painting on neighboring condo units that severely disrupted his vacation. Rodgers vividly describes how, upon arriving at the property, he initially noticed painting activity at a neighboring building, specifically condo number 35. At first, Rodgers explains this was manageable, as he assumed the work would soon be completed and wouldn't significantly impact his own rental. However, he becomes increasingly animated and frustrated as he recounts that, shortly after settling in, the painting work abruptly moved directly onto the building where he and his wife were staying. Rodgers passionately details the disruption this caused, vividly describing how the painting crew brought in noisy compressors and began extensive power washing of the exterior walls. He emphasizes the inconvenience and discomfort this created, particularly highlighting the noise generated by the equipment. He also describes how the painters meticulously covered all patio furniture in thick plastic wrapping to protect it from paint splatter, rendering the outdoor furniture completely unusable for the duration of this work. Rodgers appears clearly distressed as he recounts how this inconvenience spanned nearly 2 weeks, significantly diminishing his enjoyment and comfort during his vacation. Throughout Rodgers' animated retelling, Judge Judy maintains her characteristically neutral yet attentive demeanor, carefully absorbing the details while simultaneously preparing pointed follow-up questions. The judge carefully observes Rodgers' increasing frustration, clearly noting the emotional weight Rodgers assigns to this disruption. The painting issue quickly emerges as a central element of Rodgers' complaint, significantly shifting attention away from his previous claims regarding cleanliness and amenities. As Rodgers passionately describes the disruption caused by the painters, Judge Judy begins to probe deeper into his narrative. With her characteristic clarity and directness, she interrupts Rodgers at multiple points to clarify a crucial inconsistency. Why, if the situation was truly intolerable, did Rodgers continue to stay at the property throughout almost the entirety of the painting process? Judge Judy repeatedly emphasizes this logical contradiction in Rodgers' account, highlighting that if the noise and inconvenience were as severe as he claimed, a natural response would have been to immediately seek a remedy or leave. Rodgers, clearly caught off guard by the direct questioning, struggles to provide a coherent response. Initially, he attempts to justify his extended stay by saying he genuinely believed the painting crew would soon complete their work. However, Judge Judy remains unconvinced and presses further, expressing skepticism at Rodgers' reasoning. Her tone is measured yet firm, clearly signaling doubt about his narrative's plausibility. Rodgers' explanations become progressively tangled as he seeks to justify remaining at the rental despite the ongoing discomfort. He attempts to refine his argument, explaining that the noise was indeed unbearable but suggesting he had already paid in full and was hoping the disturbances would soon subside. Judge Judy carefully points out that this reasoning contradicts the severity of his original complaint, suggesting that true intolerability would have prompted immediate action rather than prolonged toleration. The judge's meticulous line of questioning gradually exposes weaknesses in Rodgers' account, underscoring the critical importance she places on logical consistency and proactive responses to genuine dissatisfaction. Rodgers' credibility, already weakened by earlier admissions, continues to erode under Judge Judy's careful scrutiny. As Judge Judy continues her rigorous questioning, Rodgers grows visibly frustrated and more emotionally charged, defending his decisions and actions vigorously. He insists repeatedly that the primary reason he chose to leave early was the unbearable noise created by the painting crew, emphasizing that the disturbances significantly disrupted his intended peaceful vacation. However, Judge Judy quickly identifies and highlights a critical contradiction in his narrative. Rodgers previously admitted the painting and related noise on his own building had ceased on September 23rd, 5 days before his actual departure. Rodgers, now clearly flustered by Judge Judy's pointed questions, attempts to clarify his position by shifting his complaint slightly. He quickly asserts that although the painting had ceased directly on his own building, the noise and disruption continued unabated because the workers simply moved their operations immediately to the adjacent building. Rodgers emphasizes that the equipment, compressors, and noisy power washers were still positioned extremely close, practically in his backyard, causing continuous irritation. Judge Judy, however, remains steadfastly analytical, patiently yet firmly pressing Rodgers to acknowledge this key inconsistency in his explanation. She calmly yet assertively suggests that, logically, the noise and inconvenience should have significantly decreased once the work on his own building ended. Rodgers counters this, passionately arguing that the proximity of the ongoing work at the neighboring building meant the disruptive conditions never truly improved. His emotional intensity increases notably during this exchange, clearly reflecting his deep frustration at the situation and the judge's challenging line of questioning. Throughout this exchange, Judge Judy maintains an unwavering focus on the facts and timeline Rodgers himself has provided, carefully highlighting how his shifting explanations undermine the strength and consistency of his complaint. Her pointed questioning continues to systematically test Rodgers' credibility, drawing attention to weaknesses in his story and challenging his rationale for abruptly leaving the property early. After carefully listening to Rodgers' shifting explanations, Judge Judy pauses deliberately and decides to clarify the core issue using a vivid analogy. She calmly but assertively presents a hypothetical situation, explaining to Rodgers how his actions appear illogical in practical terms. Judge Judy likens Rodgers' complaint to going to a restaurant and ordering a steak. She slowly and clearly describes a scenario where someone tastes the steak immediately upon being served, finds it unacceptable, and promptly sends it back, justifying a refusal to pay. She contrasts this scenario sharply with another situation wherein someone tastes a steak, finds it not quite up to expectation but tolerable, proceeds to eat nearly the entire meal, and only afterward complains, refusing to pay. The judge carefully emphasizes that in the second scenario, the diner's refusal to pay would clearly be unreasonable and unjustifiable, since he had consumed most of the meal despite his claimed dissatisfaction. She methodically explains this metaphor, firmly applying it to Rodgers' circumstances, highlighting how Rodgers, despite encountering significant inconveniences, continued to stay in the rental for nearly the full duration of the agreed-upon period before eventually leaving. Judge Judy underlines her key point explicitly, that Rodgers effectively ate the steak by remaining at the condo throughout most of the disturbances and thus lost the credibility of his claim to a full refund. Throughout this part of the hearing, Rodgers listens quietly, visibly absorbing the impact of the analogy. The judge's use of such clear, relatable imagery noticeably resonates within the courtroom, underscoring her point and making Rodgers' complaint seem increasingly unreasonable. Judge Judy's calm yet authoritative presentation makes it evident that her patience with Rodgers' contradictory explanations is running thin, clearly signaling to all present that she perceives Rodgers' actions as undermining the validity of his claim. As Judge Judy continues to dissect Rodgers' claim methodically, Rodgers introduces another element into his argument, asserting that Kathy Hall, the property owner, possessed prior knowledge of the planned painting project but deliberately chose not to inform him about it. Rodgers expresses significant frustration over this perceived deception, passionately insisting that Hall should have communicated clearly about the painting before confirming the rental arrangement. He He emotionally emphasizes how such prior knowledge would have dramatically influenced his decision-making, either prompting him to avoid renting altogether or at least negotiate terms for compensation or discounts to accommodate the anticipated inconvenience. Judge Judy attentively listens to Rodgers' new angle of complaint, carefully evaluating the logical merits of his position. She acknowledges the validity of his basic premise that a property owner should reasonably inform renters of significant potential disturbances, but immediately counters Rodgers' argument by pointing out an essential limitation in Hall's responsibility. Judge Judy calmly and clearly underscores a crucial distinction. Although Hall is responsible for her own property, she holds no control or accountability over painting or construction decisions involving neighboring properties. This distinction significantly weakens Rodgers' accusation against Hall, making his assertion of intentional deception less compelling. Rodgers, however, persists with intense frustration, emphasizing repeatedly how unfair he feels the situation is, regardless of Hall's direct control over the neighboring properties. Judge Judy maintains her composure, consistently reiterating the clear boundaries of legal responsibility. Her controlled yet assertive delivery emphasizes to Rodgers and the courtroom observers that, despite Rodgers' understandable frustration, the law limits Hall's liability strictly to her own property. This explanation significantly undermines Rodgers' claims about Hall's supposed obligation to inform him of external disruptions, reinforcing the judge's emphasis on reasonableness and clarity in legal expectations. Judge Judy then sharply redirects her scrutiny towards Rodgers' own actions and decision-making processes. She challenges Rodgers firmly yet patiently, questioning why he did not take immediate, decisive action when the disruptions from the painting began. Judge Judy explicitly suggests that Rodgers, upon encountering substantial inconvenience, should have promptly communicated with Hall, clearly stating his dissatisfaction and intention to leave immediately while requesting a refund for the remaining unused rental period. Rodgers, visibly defensive and increasingly frustrated, insists vehemently that he did indeed contact Hall multiple times, attempting to convey his dissatisfaction with the ongoing situation. Yet, Judge Judy calmly counters this, emphasizing a critical point: merely complaining to the landlord was insufficient without clear and immediate action, specifically his departure from the rental at the onset of significant inconvenience. Judge Judy firmly highlights the missed opportunity. Rodgers had the chance to strongly assert his position by promptly vacating the premises when the problems first arose, which would have significantly bolstered the legitimacy of his complaint. The judge methodically explains to Rodgers the logical implications of his inaction. By choosing instead to remain at the condo for an extended period despite the discomfort and inconvenience, he implicitly demonstrated a level of acceptance or at least tolerance of the circumstances. Judge Judy emphasizes repeatedly that Rodgers' failure to take clear, immediate, and decisive steps to mitigate his own losses weakens his legal position considerably. Rodgers listens, visibly frustrated but also somewhat subdued by Judge Judy's clear reasoning. The judge's point, delivered calmly yet firmly, underscores a fundamental principle of legal responsibility. Proactive steps must be taken promptly to minimize damages, or the claimant risks forfeiting the right to later seek compensation. This critical moment in the courtroom visibly signals to Rodgers and observers that Rodgers' lack of decisive action significantly undermines his claim for reimbursement. Finally, after systematically examining every aspect of Rodgers' complaint and thoroughly scrutinizing his decisions and explanations, Judge Judy decisively moves towards concluding the case. In a calm yet authoritative tone, she announces her judgment clearly and firmly, stating unequivocally that Rodgers' claim for the full refund of approximately $5,000 is entirely unreasonable. Judge Judy methodically outlines her reasoning once more, reinforcing the critical points that shaped her final decision: Rodgers' prolonged stay despite alleged intolerable conditions, his lack of immediate, decisive action to rectify his dissatisfaction, and especially his failure to provide tangible photographic evidence to substantiate his initial complaints about cleanliness and ants, Judge Judy reiterates the importance of personal responsibility in her courtroom, emphasizing clearly that Rodgers' choices throughout the rental period significantly weakened any legitimate basis for a refund claim. She directly and explicitly informs Rodgers that his expectation to recover the entire rental fee is unrealistic and legally unjustifiable given the evidence and testimony presented. The clarity and decisiveness of her judgment resonate throughout the courtroom, marking a clear end to the contentious proceedings. Rodgers, visibly disappointed, quietly absorbs Judge Judy's final verdict. Judge Judy then formally declares the case dismissed, signaling clearly to both Rodgers and the property owner, Hall, that no further legal action will be entertained on this matter. As the judge confidently concludes the proceedings, the bailiff, Byrd, steps forward, calmly instructing both parties that they may exit the courtroom. Rodgers departs with obvious frustration and disappointment evident in his expression, clearly understanding that his lack of timely, decisive action and absence of crucial evidence directly contributed to his unsuccessful outcome.